You can head to the back there, my right, your left, back out that way as we get things started. All right, good looking crew there. Good to see you guys. Hope you're doing well, man. I'm praying for us for school starting tomorrow with our kids and all the new things that come this fall, and excited for what God has for us in the complicated mess that is our schedule sometimes. And I believe He's got a lot in store for us. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes I think we kind of wonder what are we doing all of this for? And that's what I want to talk to you about today. We're in this series called Think Orange that comes from this wonderful organization that really focuses on the strategy of loving kids. And there's a lot that we can learn from them. I want to talk to you about how important that strategy is. I don't know if you've ever going to get this question asked to you, but I'd be curious what your answer would be. And the question is, why does Go Church even matter? Like, why spend your time doing that? A lot of you spend hours, lots of sleepless nights, lots of stress, making what this is work. And so, man, why do you do what you do? One of my favorite questions that's been asked, and it really has changed a lot about me, is what would happen if this church didn't exist? Would you be missed at all? I like that question because it makes me think about what we're doing. And I'm really actually excited about the answer because I think we would. I think specifically at the school, I want to tell you about some of the things that we've got planned for the fall a little bit. I'm not going to go into details, but I mentioned it last week. I'll tell you again, we're invested in this school and in PHSC Spring Hill campus. Those are our main places that we've really dug our heels in a little bit. And so what we've got is some events coming up to really focus in on those places. We just had a gift we got to the teachers here for open house for the school here, and excited to love on the teachers. But here's what's really cool is this campus, there's a whole bunch of new teachers this semester that are new this year that don't know who we are. There's a bunch of new families, of course, and all of which don't know who we are either. And so there's a lot of potential that is right here at this school. One of the things we wanted to do is because the beach was such a great success, we want to do something like that again, and we've already kind of scheduled that anytime there's a fifth Sunday month, that we would take a week of that month and use it to go out and be Go Church. And so it was great in July for the beach, and then in September we want to do that again. And so what we're looking at, and details, we're still working that one out, is that we're going to meet at the park at Delta Woods and have some fellowship and some worship again, and invite the school to come be a part of that. We can get flyers in the backpacks. I met with some people here this last week, and excited to love on the campus and those kids. There's a couple other ideas. I was talking with Fran, one of the janitors in the back, and so they've seen it done before, and we entertained the idea of using our projectors and doing a movie night for some of the kids, and almost like a babysitting thing, and tell families, hey, let's love on mom and dad and let you guys go out for a little bit, and we'll put on a movie. So working on that idea. Another good one was that we just want to love on the bus drivers. They don't always get a lot of TLC, and so just kind of have like a bus washing day and just kind of take care of them a little bit. And so, man, we've got some ideas to do some things at the school. And maybe my favorite, that is much more than an idea, something that's getting ready to happen, is the principal had asked me, which is really cool, if I would be okay with leading some kind of Christian Bible study at the school on campus. For the principal, for the principal to want Go Church to jump in to do something to bring Christ to the campus. Guys, we have some open doors here, and so I know part of the answer to that question is I think at least in some ways for Deltona Elementary School, they would miss us. But I want that to be even more. I want to be even more a part of the ministry that we can do here and help them in better ways. And so I'm excited for what that means at this campus. But again, we're also committed to PHSC. I know that's my mic, and I'm just kind of seeing what happens. So it cuts a little bit, but we'll be all right. We really have a lot of opportunity there. There's so many students that come in and out of that campus, and so we want to continue to find ways to love on those students. What we've got coming up is kind of their welcome week for campus is starting the 20th. So not this week, as we most of us have school starting with our kids, but 20 through the 24th, that we're going to be there for this welcome week during the day. If you want to come be a part of that, we just kind of serve coffee and love on the students and say hi and kind of introduce ourselves for the semester to come. There's a couple clubs that happen that I get to be a part of. And then one of the cool things too is that September we wanted to do a service that would be at the park that would focus on this school. But then in December is another fifth Sunday month, and so we want to pick a week in there to do something at PHSC. And we've got some connections where I think think we might have Go Church at the college. Still kind of, December is tricky and gets a little messy, so we'll see. But man, we've just great opportunities at that college. The academic dean, Jim, is like, man, let me help you. I want to make sure that we can do stuff with you because you guys are just a joy to the campus and they love having us be there. So, man, we've got some open doors, some opportunities to really do things. And one of the things that made this all kind of click for me in a really neat way, the way a lot of times churches will do missions, or the focus on missions, is that they will have a budget in mind, and different missionaries might ask for support, and so then they'll find ways to support a large group of people, and they'll kind of give a little bit here, maybe give a little bit there, and that's kind of a traditional model that churches have adopted for many years, to find different organizations and then financially support them and kind of hear back and forth from those groups. But we know we wanted to do a little bit differently. We knew that instead of kind of a shotgun approach and get a lot of different organizations, we want to maybe focus in on one or two and really say, hey, how can we partner with this group and them get to kind of know us some more, and we could get to know them even more. And so that's been a focus for us as we've prayerfully been looking for these people. Now, I got to be honest with you, sometimes I'm a little burdened because we haven't found those people yet. And so I think, God, man, I wish we could be doing missions better. But then in a really neat way, I feel like he answered that prayer and he said, wait a minute, I think you're actually doing missions better than you think you are. Because what I wouldn't ever want to happen is for you guys, you're awesome, for you guys to think that missions means financially giving for other people to do mission work. Because what I'm noticing is this is a group of people at Deltona Elementary School and at PHSC that you guys are being missionaries. Where we're focusing on those campuses and figuring out, there we go. That's where I switch. That's where I'll do it. I'm going to take it off, man. Here we go. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. So anyway, what I've seen in you is that when we choose to invest in the campus here, and choose to invest in the college and other opportunities as well, that's you guys being missionaries. That's incredible, and I think that's even better because instead of just kind of financially, Mikey, you're awesome, and so I probably would have tripped over that too. Yeah, good man, he knows me well. That, man, you guys have great opportunity to do that. And so that's, to me, that's a great answer to prayer, that God, instead of limiting being connected to missions through financially giving so other people can advance the kingdom, that you guys are literally doing it. And I'm so grateful for that because I think God has more in mind for us if we continue to live that way. And so there are some, not all, but some answers to some of these questions about how we do something that matters. And the mission is very, very important. But what I want to talk about today is that there's a strategy to go about it that maybe is even more important. That I think having a mission, we have a good one. It's the one Jesus said we should be about. The mission is important, but the strategy that we use, that really might determine more of our success. And so I want to talk about the strategy that this church is all about. And it's kind of cool how this worked because last week we were up in the media center, and I actually thought this week we were going to be, which is kind of ironic because a year ago when we were up there, I had a very similar message, and I said something, and I'm getting ready to say to you that I'm so convicted by. And so I'm excited for this strategy that I'm really finding our identity in. And let me tell you a couple different things about the strategy. The first one is going to be the place in which we make it happen. You might notice that we've got some more pipe and drape, and we've kind of worked on this environment in here a little bit because this is one of the places where we do ministry. Now, you and I know that the church is the body, that you guys are the church, and this just happens to be the place that we meet, but this is the place, and we kind of need a place, and we're trying to be strategic about the place, and so we focus on this environment to have people come into this place and do what we do together because that becomes very important. And so what the church does in this place, we care about. We want you to be in an environment where you can focus in on Jesus, where you can spend some time and just worship the King that changed your life, and that's very important to us, and that place matters. Another one that's even more important is your home. And now that kind of shows up in a couple of different ways for us strategically, is that we care about connect groups. Now, we're not a typical church with a building to where we can say, hey, come bring your group here. We tell you if you want to meet in a group, it's going to be at your home or another place you choose to do that. And so your home becomes a very important place that we do ministry. And in fact, when I think about Jesus and I think about all the ministry he did around a table, I think there's a lot of strategy to that. I think you do a lot more ministry around your table than you give yourself credit for. And now not just with your Connect group and the people that might come over to your home, but I really mean the people that live there. I mean the kids that you put to bed and the kids that you feed at those tables and the different things that you do at home. There's a lot of ministry that happens there. In fact, way more ministry happens there than happens here on a Sunday. And so that place is very, very important to us. In fact, that place I know will never go away, regardless of what happens in Christianity in America. And if there's issues about where churches can meet, you will always have your home to tell people about Jesus. And so that's a very important place to this church. And kind of the third one that we see show up in different ways that we're kind of learning to do better, and that place is just going out. Because I think sometimes for a church, they like to focus on the building to be the only place that Jesus happens. But I'm so grateful that you and I are learning how to do ministry outside of this place. So that place might be PHSC. It might be where you meet with some friends for coffee to talk about whatever. And it might be at this meeting or this. But you guys got places outside of here. That place matters. That is a place where Jesus wants you to do ministry. And so Go Church is learning to do that better and better and better. So those places, they matter very much. And we care about focusing in on those places and how to improve those places so you can be better at doing the ministry that he's called you to. You've got a place, but there is a product in mind for all of this, if I can use that word. There is an end result that might come when we choose to do what Jesus wants us to do. And so I want to paint a little bit of a picture of what it would look like if you're committed to the strategy that Jesus calls this church and you to. And so I want to pull up Matthew 22. This is what Jesus tells us is so important to us. And so I think if, as people, as our kids, as your neighbors, as yourself, these are the kind of things that Jesus wants for us. This is a product that he wants in mind. And so Jesus answers this question, what is the greatest commandment in the law? And he says, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul and all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. This is the great commandment. This is important to understand that this is what we want to look like. That you would be the type of person that loves God with all your heart and loves your neighbors the same. That's so incredibly important to what it means to be the Christian that God created you to be. Now, again, we're in this series called Think Orange, talking about some ideas we have for our students. And so they, just like we, kind of have this as an end game that we want people to be in that place, this place of maturity. But they kind of identify a couple ideas that, as I talk about it, you'll see aren't just for our kids, but they're very strategic about what we teach them and where we want our students to go. And so from this passage, there's these things that we want to emulate in our kids and the people that we live life with. And those three ideas is it would help them have a wonder, discovery, and passion. One thing that's neat about this ministry, this Think Orange group, is it isn't so much about here's a children's ministry and here's what we want the kids to know and teach them and here's who leads it. And then over here in a separate environment, a separate kind of ministry is middle school, and then here's high school and here's college and here's adults, but that finding a way to kind of have a strategy that all works together. Because we want to be growing the same way, because they're important just like you're important. And so these three things are very important. And I don't know about you, but I want my kids to have an awe, to be a wonder of who God is. And so what does that mean for you and for me? That means that we tell a story and live a life where we believe there's a really, really big God. That he is bigger than the boogeyman. That even when things don't go the way you want, you can trust that he is who he says he is. And I think sometimes for our kids, we can paint a picture of a very small God. In fact, maybe so small he just fits in our pocket and goes where we want to go. And so we got to be careful about what we show our kids about the wonder of his majesty. He is the Almighty. He is so much more than we can comprehend, and he is bigger than anything. And I want them to have this awe, this wonder about his bigness, that he is the Almighty that spoke the universe into existence. And at the same time, he is your Abba Father that knows every hair on your head. There's great wonder that we find in our Creator. And I think when we understand more of that helps us trust in him. And we kind of need that. Because a lot of times I think, here's the deal, a lot of people, I read a stat the other day that it isn't so much that people don't go to church as much as they used to because they hate it, because they have some theological issue with it. A lot of them come they don't come because they just don't see a need to be a part anymore. They honestly just don't think about it. In fact, even just now this morning, as I was over there kind of praying, getting ready to think about what I was going to say to you, I saw a teacher coming in to go get her classroom set up, and I just started praying for her. Man, so many people have so much going on right now, last day of summer. All these different things to get done, to get their school list supplies for their kids and get this figured out. And so, man, so many people are just going through life and not taking that moment to stop. And just remember, man, like he's going to take care of all of that. And so having that wonder in God, having that dependence on a creator that's bigger, that is so important. I don't know about you, but when I'm stressed out, I need to have a God that's big enough that can handle it, and he can. I need to have that moment to just say, you know what? Why am I so worried about this little thing when the perspective says you're the king over the whole story? I've got so much more that's good to live for. Why am I worried about this little moment? And so I need that. And that to me is one of the big reasons why this is important. Because you need to have a relationship with God where you can get through the difficult things in life, and he is there for it. And we heard some good songs talking about that he's ready to hear your weeping and your stories. So I want you to have this wonder, this awe, but secondly, and kind of, I guess, in order as far as the development of students, and this is this idea of real discovery. I love this idea because I think I've seen places before where God kind of fits in this box, and I've got an answer to every question, and this is how God does things. And so you kind of get this sometimes this idea that you kind of shut off your mind to creativity, to thinking any differently than what you've been taught by a person one time when you were younger. And I sense that God does things a little bit differently. And in fact, one of the places I saw this was in the Devo that we did this week. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. Some of you knew about it. What we're doing this month as well, as we're talking through some strategy for our students, is we're using the Bible app and going through some Bible reading plans. And so we've kind of got 2 weeks to do a 7-day one. And so I kind of started here last week, and the Bible plan was called Never Say No, Raising Big Picture Kids. And so we went through that app a little bit. And so there's 7 days to it. And day 6 has this idea that, man, when Adam and Eve were in the garden, that was a garden that was growing. That it seems like maybe the way God would parent is he wants to parent in a way that has, hey, I want you to experience this garden. I want you to see all that I've done and how it's going to grow, and I want you to be a part of that. And something I've seen in me, and I think God kind of put that in there and put it in us, is I love when my kids discover something they haven't seen before. Like the first time my kids saw snow, or the first time they tried ice cream. There's something magical about when your kids discover new things, and you kind of want them to. And I'm excited for the world that they're going to discover. And I think that's the way God sees us as well, because there's a whole lot of good out there. In fact, I'll take it a step further. I have moments where I fear about what my children will grow up in, what the world they're going to be a part of is going to look like. And it's stressful. But then I think, you know what, if he really did make all of it, if he really is above all things, that no matter what pursuit they travel down, no matter what road my kids go down in life, God is already ahead of that. He's in all those places. If my kid were to come up to me, any of my kids, and say, hey, I want to study this or I want to study that, and it has nothing to do with Jesus, I feel like there is no path that our kids could go down where God would not redeem them from it. There's no thing that they can discover in this world that's going to be bigger than God. Oh, I don't want you to do this, or I don't want you to do that, because maybe you'll realize that God isn't big enough. That there is no road that does that. No matter what our kids go through, and for some of you, it's easy to worry about the paths they've taken and the things that they might do. But there is no thing that they can do that will take them away from the truth of God that exists over all the world. And there is more to discover about him that we don't know. There are places that he has been that we've not been yet, and I want to continue to discover the big faith that he has for us to realize there's more. And I love this. A professor told me this, that he said, I believe that when I pass away, I'm going to be able to sit at the feet of God, and I'm going to learn about him for all of eternity, and I'll still not know everything there is to know. And I love that desire to learn. And one of the reasons I knew I should go to Bible college and go into ministry is because I didn't like everything I was learning in high school, but man, I was passionate about learning about God. I love taking time just to sit and study at his feet and be blown away by the majesty of who he is. and discover more about it, man, I still do, man. I don't want to take too much time, but even this week, I was at a conference with Rick, and this great speaker brought up something I'd never thought about before, that in Genesis, there's this great story about the angels being created, and then a little lower than them, the text says, that God created us. And I just kind of thought that's part of the story, and it was, of course, strategic, but then we kind of get on to what happens with the garden and the fall and all the other details. But that line actually is very, very significant, because God's in the habit of getting glory through the lesser. He likes to take stories and redeem that was broken with a people that no one would expect to change the world. You look at all the Old Testament, all the New Testament, every person ever redeemed by Jesus. He likes taking people that most people would think there's no real strength in them, and he likes to take that and redeem people through it. And so one of the big reasons why you were made lower than the angels, so God would get glory when we overcome. And I love that. Like, that's just, it's a big theological story anyway, and there's more to it, but just that little nugget for me was so good. And I don't know about you, but man, I can read some passages, and sometimes I feel like I've read it 100 times, and I just want to get through it. But man, every once in a while, there will become something new that I never saw before. There's so much more to discover about God, and I want our kids to have that value and care about what it means to discover more and more about Him. And kind of last but not least, to really feel their passion. That's so important to me. I think I want them to be, as we talk about here, to be driven by the gospel. That because our students would know what Jesus has done, that they would know why it matters. That because He died for us, we can't not give everything we've got back. Like, I am passionate. I care about it, because how could I not give everything because of what He gave me? If I really understand that Jesus went through what He went through for me, I can't think to do anything else but give everything I've got back. And so I'm driven by Him. That gives me passion in life, and I want that for our students. I want that for all of us, that we would continue to find passion in the one who gave us that passion and find ways to live that out. And so these are some descriptions, some words about what the product will look like. What you and I look like, the closer we get to Jesus, the more we learn about Jesus. And that's what I want to see. Now those people do a lot of different crazy things. They plant churches, and they start new mission work, and they go be missionaries overseas, and they start non-for-profits over here, and they lead in capacity that they never thought right here. And you all have potential much greater than you give yourself credit for. There's so much more inside of you that God has for you that you have yet maybe to see. And there are things that He wants and created for you to do that I want to be a part of seeing that happen. I got to admit to you, I think Go Church is in a very interesting place. As a leader, I get to kind of see the heartbeat of this place, and I think, honestly, the beach was great. Being here, kind of getting ready for the fall again, I'm excited because I think we're in a season of identity, of preparation. God is growing the heart in this place. And I'll tell you what, man, I see some real quality in this church. I'm so grateful for the hearts because I see real Jesus in here. I see love that goes so much further. Man, I love doing ministry with you guys. I don't hear complaining. I don't hear grumbling. I hear people eagerly seeking Jesus every second they got. And I love that. And I think God's growing in us something. And here's what's really neat, because there's a product in mind. There's places that'll happen. But let me tell you kind of how we get there. What's the plan to make that happen? We've been talking about it for a while. I told you that I said it a year ago when we were up there, and I'll say it again today. The plan that is most important to, I believe, any church, and so especially this one, the plan has always been and will always be you. You are the plan. It is not some program. It is not some kind of idea that we can just kind of watch God do something else. He doesn't want us to watch. He wants us to take steps in the middle of it. You are His plan. Now, I see that in Scripture. And again, if you pull up for me Matthew 28:18-20, actually 19 and 20, this is the mission. This is the plan. He wants us to go make disciples of all nations, to baptize people in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, to teach them everything that He taught us. Man, and He'll be with us always to the very end of the age. And so there's this plan, there's this strategy that Jesus said, I want you to do. This is what I think will be the most powerful thing that you can be a part of. And so there's places that we do it, and there's this end game in mind. And so we've kind of put some of this into some next steps. And you heard some of those on the screen as we started service. And kind of what I want to do actually is you've seen those steps before, but I just kind of want to be really honest with you. And this week, I was working on my sermon, and then I kind of found myself staying up late just working on our next steps a little bit. One of the things I'm so excited to tell you is, as a leadership of this church, we're working through this book called God Dreams, and kind of the leadership is looking at what is the proper vision for this church. What are the measurable steps we're going to take to get there? How do we want that to look and make that happen? And what is it that God is calling this group to do? And again, this is not just something I'm reading, but the elders and a group of leaders in this place, and I'm so excited for that. And here's the thing. We've given it till the end of the year. So come January 2019, going to have like a Vision Sunday and share with you where we're going. I'm so excited for that. And so we've got plans to really consider how best to do what God's called us to do. And so this is a work in progress. And my spirit is moving, and I see different things that I want to continue to figure out how to do. And so those next steps, I just want to be really clear. Here's what I see happening for me and for you to think about, because we've all got steps to take. There's a place we want to get with our kids, with our neighbors. There's ways we want to do it. And so I just want to give you 4. Let me kind of put it this way. If there's a step that you need to take, or someone that you care about needs to take, that first one, and always the most important, is that they need to know Jesus. Hands down. This is a place where we don't exist if it wasn't for him. If there's any reason why we do what we do, it's because Jesus is the centerpiece. I want to make him famous with the rest of my life. I don't need a spotlight, but if we can point it on him, then I think we did something right. Let's find ways to tell people about Jesus, that they would discover him, because I don't know about you, but nothing in life works unless I have him in the front of it. And so I want to help people figure that out. So if you know that you're trying to figure out what's right in your life, then you need to talk to Jesus first. If you've got other people that are stressed and unsure about what's next, then man, that needs to be that first step, and we want to help you do that. And kind of second step and third, I could see kind of interchanging. I've said it a whole bunch. But step number 2, man, know Jesus. They got to know that's important. Step number 2, you're better together. You are not meant to live life alone. You need to be in a group, in a connect group. That's important to us. Jesus is something that cannot be comprehended by yourself. He is too big for us to wrap our mind around, and you need other people to work through that gospel together. You need people you can argue scripture with. You can cry about your drama with. Man, you need people in your life. And one of the ways we try and do it here is through connect groups. Now, that's maybe not the best or the only way to do it, but you cannot do this by yourself. I'm so glad you have Jesus, and you're going to be just fine with him, but you will not thrive. In fact, you will wither away if you are not with other people that are challenging you, that are encouraging you, that are growing you. You need other people. So that's the second step. That's so important. And then kind of from our next step, some of the things I see happening for me and with you that's so important is that, man, you need to be connected to serving and to worshiping. And I kind of could find a better word or a way to say that, but I just think those really do go hand in hand. Because what I've experienced in my life is that there is so much more to worship than just singing for Jesus on a Sunday morning, right? And one of the things I've seen that works best for me is when I serve. Because in this weird twist, that when I actually give myself away and choose to serve, I learn so much more about myself and what God has in mind for me. And one of the best acts of worship is when we serve God. And so we serve around here, whether that's with the setup team or on the stage or with the kids or however, there's ways that we worship God through service. And that's so incredibly important. As we want to get to this product, this unbelievable group of people that are sold out for Jesus and have great passion and desire to go further than we could. Man, one of the things you've got to have is this heart to serve, because that's the strategy that we use when we serve at this campus and when we serve at the college, and that has such a great power to it. And Jesus made us that way. We have the best impact when we choose to serve other people. And so that's so important that we continue to figure out how to do that better and better. And again, I've kind of married that with worship, because as a Christian, if you come to church and you've got opportunities to serve and different things in your life, but you've not found your place to just let him have your heart and sing at the top of your lungs, or whatever your act of worship is. If that's taking a walk in the park and praying, or if that's writing in a journal, or if that's belting it out in the car, I mean, whatever you need to do, you need to be someone that just gives him that praise, because there's a freedom in that, and he loves to hear it, and you are better off when you give it. What does it mean for you to worship Jesus? How does that look in your life? Because here's the thing, that ties into step 4 a whole lot more than you think, because the way we worship matters not just for our soul, but for the other people that see us and watch it happen. And so we've got this end game. We want people to be this product of Jesus that is better than we could ever be. And I've said before, and I'll say again, that I want my kids, I want your kids to love Jesus more than we ever could, to go further than we were ever able to. And so there's this end game that we want for them to get, this thing that we want them to do. And so, man, these are some steps. Step 1, know Jesus. Be connected to people. Step 2, step 3, make sure that you're worshiping and serving because you need that. And that's important because here's step 4, and maybe just as important as step number 1. All of that we do as Christians, all that you partake in and share and experience, man, you have to find ways to it. And here's the word, or here's the phrase, that you would be intentional about your relationships. We spent a whole month, last month, talking about passing it on and sharing your faith and finding ways to take what Jesus taught you and giving that to other people. And so technically, one of the things that we say around here is we say multiply discipleship. It's so important to the people that you're intentional about. And so again, the places are here, they're at home, they're at the school, but sometimes we think discipleship only happens on a Sunday morning, but that isn't it at all. In fact, most of the time it doesn't. There is intentional relationships that you can have at home with your kids, and you should start there if you haven't. Those intentional relationships might happen at work and different places, but there are people in your life that you are supposed to be intentional with, because all of the good that you've been given by Jesus, all the hope, all the wonder, all the great things that you know that's in here, that was not meant to stay there. Jesus didn't just die for your sin, but he died for a purpose in your life. You have meaning and value to bring to the table. And so how are you intentionally pouring into people's lives? And so, man, that's the heartbeat to me, as clear as I can make it, that we've got places we do ministry, and I told you about some of those. I even think there's more than those I mentioned. There's this end game in mind where I want our kids, I want our friends to know Jesus better than we did, to go further than we're able to go. And so I think the way we get to that is by those steps. Man, we start with Jesus, get them connected, get them worshiping, and be intentional about those people and grow with those people. And so you guys have some steps to take, because at the end of the day, you're the plan. And this isn't just what I think. This seems to be what Jesus had in mind when he died for you. That you weren't just meant to hold that gift of freedom, but to take it to a world that needs the light. To bring hope to those people, because he believes that you are the plan. You are the strategy. And I'm so grateful for that, because here's what I know. When I choose to be faithful to the King, and I listen as best I can, and try and do what he told me to do, from the day I said yes and got baptized and gave my life to him, from that day on, I just try my best to listen. And I'll tell you what, man, every time it seems like what I had envisioned for my life, what we might have envisioned for this church, and then if I just choose to be faithful and do what he called me to do and be the person that he wants me to be and invest in others, take those 4 steps, man. If I do that, I've gotten to places I never would have dreamed I went. Man, when I said yes to Jesus and was faithful to it as this young 17-year-old kid and just said yes, and I lived it out, I would have never in my wildest dreams guessed that this is where I would get to. In fact, any dreams that I had pale in comparison to what he had in store for me. And I think that could only be more true for the church. Whatever visions you have for your life, whatever visions you have for this church, will pale in comparison to what he has in mind for you, if you are faithful to it, if you continue to listen to him. Now, here's what I also know. It doesn't happen in the time frame that I thought. It certainly doesn't happen in the way that I thought it was going to. But you know what? That's not up to me. It is up to me to be faithful to what he called me to do. And I will take all the good news that he poured into my life, and I will pour it into other people, and he'll take care of the details. And I'm just going to do that until he calls me home, because so far, as soon as I said yes, I've gone further and better than I ever thought my life would have been. And so I can't promise all the details are going to be crystal clear for you. All the steps that you take and this great strategy that he calls us to through the Great Commission and the Great Commandments, that they're going to be difficult and a little bit different for each person. I wish that every time we seek to share our faith, there's kind of a cookie cutter model that everyone does it this way and it's just going to work. And it just seems like that's not what he had in mind. You are on a journey just as I am. And there, unfortunately, are some details that do not always make the most sense. But I can tell you, man, if you continue to be faithful and do what he said, you will be amazed about what he does in your life. So don't give up. Don't lose hope. And so with that being said, I think that gives me a reason to do this, to do Go Church, because the school year is going to get busy. You're going to get stressed and have a lot of things on your to-do list. But it seems like, man, when I make time for him in these places that we've talked about, with that product in mind, man, I think he's got great things in store for us, because I think this church is in that season right now of learning how best to do that. And some of you already know, man, we got a couple examples already sitting around here where we've seen that when we choose to tell people about Jesus and be intentional about relationships, man, God gets some real glory for that. And so that's what I'm excited to figure out how to do better. And again, just reading through some of the orange content kind of helped me to see where our strategy is at, and how, man, the mission that we have, that's important, but the strategy we implement matters even more. And so don't forget that the strategy here is you. You are capable the more you give yourself credit for. And since it's you, and if you're not sure what to do, man, I would start with one of those steps. Introduce people to Jesus, make sure they're connected to other people, and maybe you're that connection. People are not meant to live life by themselves. Don't let that happen. The enemy's really good at picking us off when we're alone. Don't let it happen. And then step 3, if I can put it in that order, man, give your life away. Serve as best you can, because in the way that this good father treats his kids, when you serve, he gives you back more than you deserved anyway. Deny yourself for the king. Take up your cross and follow him, because where you go will be higher than any mountain you could have climbed anyway. Let him fill your heart with worship. Let your kids see how good he is to you, because, man, I want them to see their dad sing to Jesus, right? I want our kids to know that he's worth giving everything to. And so not just what happens on Sunday, but what happens with your families Monday through Saturday. How do you worship the King? Because they're watching. And if you do it, man, I think that's intentional in those relationships, and that's a really good step, because if I've got kids that see me love Jesus, and then I say, you know what, they're worth my time to intentionally tell them about the steps that they need to take, that's going to mean something. And I like it to be right away, right? I like my kids to get it all right and do all the right things, but I'm not promised that. He said, this is what I want you to do. I want you to tell them what I told you. Weave into them the scriptures, man, teach them what is true, and when they grow older, they will not depart from it. And I know that is true, and it might always happen in the time that I want it to. It might take longer than I thought, and I know it will be harder than I was ready for. But if I can speak from my heart, man, it has always been worth it. It will always be worth it. Follow the plan he has for your life, and know that you are his strategy to change the world forever. Enjoy the ride. Do the best that you can to keep your feet on the ground and stay close to him, because it gets crazy. And so I'm excited for what's coming for this church and for the strategy that he called us to. And that's just kind of my heart as we working through this content, and excited for next week to talk a little bit more about how we do family, because that's incredibly important. Let me pray for you, and we're going to close with it. You know what? I'm sorry. I had 2 more things as far as closing in prayer. Ian, if you'll put these things on the screen. Last week we ended with some time in prayer, and I kind of want to do that again. And so I was going to pray, and I'm still going to, but then if we can, whether you want to break up into groups this week, or if you just want to sit where you're at, I'm not going to make you do which one. It's going to be completely up to you. I think it's better for you if you pray with other people. I would encourage you to do that. But if you need to pray right where you're at, I'll leave that to you. But I just ask, no matter what strategy we have, I don't want to go anywhere unless I'm praying about it first. Man, I don't want to take a single step until he said, this is the place I want you to go. So let's pray about the directions that we take as a church. I would love to be praying for Go Church, for the future of this place, that we would go and do the things that he wants us to do. That's so important that we would do that. And then because we are a church that lives on mission and we care about this school, I want to pray for this campus. They're getting ready to start classes tomorrow, and so I want to pray for the teachers and the staff, for the kids and the families here and in our families. I think that would be really good to start our school year off with some prayer for the things that matter. So let's close with prayer. And so I'm going to pray, give you a couple moments of silence. Again, you can pray in groups by yourself, however you would like to, and then we're going to close service with a song. All right, so let me pray. Thank you, God, that I didn't trip over that microphone. Thank you for good friends that would pick me up if I did fall. In more ways than one. I pray that everyone in this room has got people that would pick them up when they fall. I pray they would know that you're the one that gives us strength to overcome anything. And I pray, God, that we would put our trust in you. Father, I pray you would help us to prioritize what matters for this busy season to come. Help us make time for what matters most. We'll have plenty of things that want to get on our schedules, but I don't ever want to get anything in the way from you being the first.
Help us to worship you in spirit and in truth and in heart and in feet and hands and everything that we've got, that we would give you praise for what you've done for us, God. You would fuel our passion to go further than we ever thought we could. Help us to pour into our families and our kids, to live our lives so that they would know what this love looks like. Open up opportunities for us. This fall, we've got different ways we can live on mission at home, at the schools, all over the place. God, help us to walk through the doors that you open, to seize the moment that you prepare for us. Thank you, God, for this great ministry. Thank you for the opportunity to do more than we thought we were able to do. I pray for this school. God, I pray for Deltona Elementary School. I pray that teachers would know that they're loved by a church that meets here. I pray those teachers would have strength in one another. I pray for the staff. I pray for the leadership of the school. God, I pray that this would be a place where young minds are grown to be more than they thought, that they would go further than they could because they're being educated in what matters most. I pray you would help us to find ways to teach the gospel to these students. I pray for the families that have a lot in their life as well that might not know this message, that we would love them with truth and encouragement and love the families of this school and the families at PHSC. God, I love you. I just thank you so much for today and an opportunity to continue to do your work. God, I'm excited for the fall. I pray you bless every time we get together, all the places that we meet, that you would be at the middle of it and that we would continue to give you praise for everything that you've done because you're the best. We love you, Father. It's in Jesus' name.